That sounds
Yep.
official.
No, this is actually my gavel from when I was an auctioneer years ago. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I used to do the,
Well, that seems official.
It's pretty official. I think, I got it from the auctioneering school. It's like, hey, I can't do it anymore. I'm not that good anymore. Oh my gosh. We're recording. Hey guys, welcome back to Simply Amazing, the Nightcrawler podcast for Nightcrawler fans or Nightcrawler indifferent or Nightcrawler haters, or if you've never heard of Nightcrawler, welcome. We're going to tell you all about it. If you still like him by the end of this episode, you belong with us. So anyway, we have a very special guest that we're going to introduce in a second to go into something very controversial. I mean, incredibly controversial. You guys read the news and you see what's going on out there, and our world is incredibly polarized. And this episode is going to be the most polarizing episode probably of all time. Before we get into him, though, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Lisa, aka the OG Nocturne, aka Judge Lisa in this one because I've got my gavel and I'm ready to rule over all of this. And of course, I have with me the lovely, the gorgeous, the making herself comfortable right there. That is my girl, Lauren. Girl, how you doing?
Good. I'll be better when life stops hurting me. But other than that, I'm doing great. It's always refreshing to be here and just talk about Kurt and not worry about things. I'm Lauren, your friendly neighborhood bi, and I just want to actually give an actual disclaimer. I know, this episode is all fun and love. I know to some people the topics in this can be, a little tough or triggering at times, but just know that it's all love here. This is for fun. It's silly. So if you do get frustrated, feel free to let us know if you'd like. We're happy to listen and hear you guys out. But just know this is for fun and just enjoying it and having fun talking about Kurt. And another piece that I think, you and Mav can really introduce better, Lisa.
Oh, yes. I just want to say Lauren right here is playing the role of Seneca Crane in Hunger Games, if you're familiar. He helps to start the Hunger Games, but it all goes out of control really quickly and it ends up with a mouthful of deadly nightshade. So it's going to go that way. But let's introduce our special guest right here. He gave us the idea for the episode because he has strong feelings and I have strong feelings. And there's going to be so many feelings all over the place. I had to put mats down just to make sure that everything was protected. But we have, of course, from the Vox Popcast, as well as Oh Gosh, Oh Golly, Oh Wow, Mav, he is here to talk to us about Mav. Yeah. Mav, why don't you tell them what we're talking about here?
I'm afraid of letting your listeners down with strong feelings. They're not that strong.
It's a trap.
My feelings are not that. You have strong feelings. I have moderate disagreement at best.
See, that's how I preemptively win the whole argument is that I have stronger feelings than you. Done. Argument over. Okay, guys. Thank you guys.
Okay, enjoy the show.
No, please. This is
3 minutes.
We are so excited to talk about this.
Yeah. So it is a controversial topic, as you said, because it came from. We have gotten to the point in our show. Okay, well, this is confusing. I'm on two shows. We've gotten to the point of Gosh Golly Wow, where we are traversing the entire series run of Excalibur, and we have gotten up to the point where Amanda Sefton joins the team. If you are a Kurt fan, I kind of love how you're like, oh, and if you've never heard of Nightcrawler, if they've never heard of Nightcrawler before, how are they on this show? That would be really weird. If you guys have listeners who are just starting here at the random Amanda Sefton episode, because they know who Amanda Sefton is, but not who Kurt Wagner is, please tweet me and tell me how that happened, because I want to know.
I guarantee I guarantee I probably have a random cousin who's listening to this because I sent them the link and told them to listen. So,
okay.
Hey, Kel. But yeah, otherwise I don't know.
Yeah. Stanley always said every comic is somebody's first comic. So this could be. Sure, this could be your first episode. It could be your first podcast ever. Not even your first Simply Amazing. Maybe if this is your entry into podcasting, hi. Okay, so
yeah,
anyway.
Oh God, I hope you stick.
We're basically audio
WWE
for Kurt.
But yeah, so on Gosh Golly Wow, we've been going through this comic series, and at one point they add a new character to the team, Amanda Sefton. Amanda is and we joke about this on our show a lot. Amanda is the sister / girlfriend of one of the main characters of the team.
Guess
the
which
main
one?
character being Nightcrawler, Kurt Wagner. And we've joked about it a bunch on our show, but we didn't have to deal with it because even though her presence was there for the last 74 issues at time of recording this, you guys might have heard our 70. I don't. It depends on when you're listening to it. I don't know when your posting schedule is because I'm a few episodes ahead of where we filmed. At the time of recording, she was just joining the team. And we had to deal with the fact where, we've been making this joke for the last year of, girlfriend / sister. And how did this happen? Well, the storyline is in X-Men comics I think originally it first happens in the late 70s. It might have been the 80s. I'd have to check the years. Kurt ends up dating Amanda Sefton, who is his adoptive sister. So there's no blood at all, but it is sister / girlfriend, and it's creepy. I acknowledge that. Yeah. I mean, I've never, but it's weirdly creepy. And you've had Anna on the show. Anna, my co-host. Yeah. Anna has pointed this out. Maybe the creepiest thing about it is it's almost never acknowledged that this is weird. Like no one ever says anything like, "Hey, are you dating your sister? That's weird." Like if they noticed it, maybe it would he could explain it, but he doesn't. It's just like he's dating his sister, and that's just the thing that people do sometimes. It's not, I love my sister, not interested in her. But like that kind of happens in the story. And then one of the questions that people sort of argue about on the internet is, well, is this incest or not? And the argument usually comes down to there's no blood. Why does anybody care? Or adoptive siblings are real siblings, so it's incest. And that's usually the argument for or against, both of which I understand, neither of which is my issue with it. My issue with it is, Anna's right, they don't talk about it much, but I think that's a comics code issue. I think this is one of many things that Chris Claremont, who made that decision, was interested in. Probably people were like, no, we're not dealing with this. No. There's a comics code. I don't want to do this. And then like it gets dropped. There are many Claremontian threads there. Claremont at one point wanted to change Kitty Pryde's race from a white Jewish girl to a black girl, and he just wanted to just do it as a story, and it's like, this will be fascfascinating. And then the editors were like, oh no, it won't be, and this is not going to happen. And then later they did mention, it was before Psylocke.
Before or after he? Oh, it's before Psylocke, because I was going to say, okay. I guess they were like, white to black, absolutely not. White to Asian, gray area.
White to Asian was actually an Asian person's decision. Jim Lee made that decision. Claremont wrote it, but Jim Lee made that decision. Jim Lee was just sort of like, I think she'd be sexier if she was Asian. That was like how much thought was put into it because he was Asian, and like it was like, okay, I guess like that's but that, and he had the power to do that at the time. So it was it never really develops into a, hey, why is this weird thing? My argument about it isn't so much that I'm in favor. Like I'm weird about ships. Like people have their favorite ships, and I never have any favorite ships because I always like, I don't believe in continuity. This is a much longer argument, but I like to enjoy whatever comic for the comic itself and like how it affects things before it or after it, whatever. So there are good Kurt and Amanda comics and there are bad Kurt and Amanda comics. And my arguments with it have to do more with the cultural significance of how incest is portrayed in not just comics, in literature, especially in comics, because it's going to come up. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about Superman, Supergirl comics. But how incest is portrayed in literature tends to be very, 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 very mired in American white sensibilities, even for characters who aren't white Americans, which Kurt and Amanda aren't. So yes, I understand why it's creepy, probably less creepy for them than for the reader, and that's kind of I have details as to like why. What it comes down to is like there are in the incest taboo, as it's called, is one of the most universal taboos across all of cultural studies. Most societies on Earth have a problem with incest. This is good.
I mean, most, not all.
Not all, but most.
If you're royal, that's a whole different thing.
Yes, but the vast majority of it is and it isn't. The vast majority have problems with incest, but it's not as universally defined as to what is incest as I think people think it is. Claude Levi-Strauss started dealing with this in his writing and talked about how it was a universal taboo. And then it turned out he was wrong, because once you ask people, well, what is incest? They don't necessarily give the same answer. In America, it tends to be, well, I guess if you're, I don't know, third, fourth cousin, that's probably okay. But then some portions of America, it's got a second, some it's first. Most of them are not okay with siblings. But so like the royals are not okay with siblings, but like a lot of royals, first cousins are just a thing. And you end up with a lot of people being fascinated by it because of the taboo nature. And so you end up with people wanting to write about it a lot. And then it gets complex. So like one of my least favorite books that I had to read when I was getting a PhD is Absalom. William Faulkner writes about incest a lot in his classic literature, and it's just like it's often accidental. I didn't know she was my sister, but long lost sister, that sort of thing happens a lot in stories because people are like sort of fascinated by the taboo. And then if you do porn studies, which is one of my outside of comics, I'm also into porn studies, which is a thing. It's a real thing. Trust me, I have a doctorate.
So am I. So
yeah.
So I don't got a doctorate for it.
Yeah, but like. If you wonder why currently step sibling porn is very big, because you can sort of touch that incesty thing and get the taboo, but then to say it's not his real brother, it's his step brother. You can do you can do that sort of thing. So it gets complex.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. There's lots of layers. There's lots of different definitions. I think for me, the thing about Kurt and Amanda is that. Let's use another sibling couple or a couple of siblings as an example. So you have Kurt and Amanda, who are not related by blood, but were literally raised together, like for Kurt from birth, raised with this woman, right, as his sister. Yeah,
sometimes birth, sometimes a toddler. Depends on. That's another thing with continuity. Depends on which one. Yeah. Sometimes a young age. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, younger than he can remember. So the entirety of his life she has been his sister in his life. Then you have, let's say, Jean-Paul and Aurora, who are literally like they're twins, but they didn't actually know about each other until much later in life. So it's one of those things where there's the psychological, like there's the DNA side of it and there's the psychological side of it. And for me, I would be less weirded out, even though it would never happen because JP is gay and married to Kyle, and God help him if he cheats on Kyle, I'm coming after him. But let's say in a hypothetical situation, Jean-Paul and Aurora were to get together, even though they're related by blood, it's slightly less squicky to me, only because it's like they didn't know and they don't have that that entire lifetime of being raised together, calling the same woman mom, calling the same guy brother. Calling they've probably got pictures of the two of them in the bathtub when they were kids, not knowing that they were going to be doing other things with their genitals when they got older. So it's just that to me is what really does it, is that psychological side where they were raised as siblings. They called the same woman mother, and so that is where that comes in. However,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. However, so I have been talking about this Chris Claremont story I'm going to share on a live, but I'm going to share it right now because it's incredibly pertinent to this situation. And Mav, I don't think I've told you this story, and it's kind of hilarious. I was at a New York Comic Con recently, and I met Claremont, and I was dressed as Amanda Sefton, and I'm the queen of cosplay where it's like, if I can order it on Amazon 3 days before the con and have it delivered and put it together and make myself look something like the thing, I'm doing it. So I was wearing like her white dress from the 2007 series with a glass of wine. And, when she's like all sexy about like, oh,
iconic.
I use Google and crystal balls, honey. That's not the quote, So I was dressed as that. Chris saw me and he thought I was Emma Frost and he wanted to get a picture with me. I was already online to get his autograph. By the way, we're giving away that autograph book at our next live. That's actually going to happen, guys. So please come by. And when I mentioned I was Amanda Sefton, he was a little surprised because he didn't recognize the costume. And then I made a joke to him saying, oh, that's what happens when you fuck your brother or something like that. He gave me this look of like pure shock. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, like, you wrote this.
He doesn't consider them
you wrote this. He doesn't. And this is where I think the big thing happens. And here's the thing. I'm not going to make any grand sweeping statement about what makes somebody a sibling. There are all kinds of families and every type of family is valid. If you are adopted, if you are foster, if you are step, it doesn't matter. If you are siblings, it is true. That is important and your relationship is valid. However, it is very clear because he even said to me afterwards, he was like, Rogue is his sister, not Amanda. Yeah. So like, he does not consider them to be siblings.
Nope.
I believe that he did intend Amanda to be more of the girl next door type trope.
100%.
But he blurred the lines by making Margali both, like he didn't, Margali did not have to be both of their mothers.
I feel like that was an accident. Like he's like, oh, this would be great. Like, but like, how do you do that? And because I think, like you're saying, it makes sense. Like that he did the girl next door vibe. Because I mean, Amanda fits that trope completely, and Kurt that works with who Kurt is his character too. So yeah, I can see that's like, oh, but they were raised together, so they're not technically siblings. They're foster, but they're not siblings. But also they're foster siblings, but they're not siblings. And it's like, Claremont, then why did you write it? You could have literally just not written it. You could have said Margali took care of them both, right? And just said that. And then people can interpret it however they want. And then that way, it's not on you. You didn't put on the page the word sibling or foster siblings. You said she just raised them. Figure it out. Do what you want with it.
To be fair, I think he forgets stuff. I mean, you write a book for 18 years, you're gonna miss some stuff. So yeah. I get why he might not remember that he said that. I agree with Lauren 100%. He did not have to use the word adopted. I think there's some weirdness there though, because and here's one of the reasons why I always say I hesitate to call myself a defender of the relationship. I'm a defender of the relationship in that I like Amanda and I like their interplay with each other. And I agree with Lauren. If you just get rid of the word sibling, there's no problem. I mean, there's no problems with it at all. In fact, it becomes a very interesting sex positive, non-monogamous relationship between the two of them, which fascinates me. And not just the sexual bit. They are, for Kurt, Amanda is probably the most constant in his life person across the entirety of his life. So I find them fascinating as a couple. I don't know if he remembers what he said, he being Claremont. I don't know if he
well, I don't think he does.
Yeah. And I don't know, like a lot of Claremont decisions were modified, or he was always tempered by Wheezy or by Anne, Louise Simonson or Anne Nassini, his editors. They made him do stuff that he didn't want to do that is quite frankly for the best in many, many occasions. Andrew DeMond, who did the Claremont run, my other co-host, he's done a lot of me, and he'll acknowledge that Claremont needed an editor to keep him at bay sometimes. So that one I think is one that just got through, and maybe he doesn't remember. That said, I think he's trying to do something interesting with the concept that they are gypsy circus folk, which is not a thing. It should be, they're Romani, but like the book calls them gypsies because that's where language was at the time. But also I don't think people understand the Romani either. So they even today, they write the Romani in X books frequently as though that's a religion. It's not. It's an ethnicity. Romani tend to be the dominant religion of whatever area they are sort of in. So like Romani who are in a Muslim part of the world tend to be Muslim. Romani who are in a Christian part of the world tend to be Christian. A Jewish part of the world tend to be Jews. Because that's just, just like any other ethnic group, there are, white people who are Christian. There are white people who are Muslim. Same basic thing. So the Romani behave like that. It's more cultural than religious. So probably if they were very Christian, they are more likely to have a problem with the I was raised as your brother, I was raised as your sister, and therefore it's a problem. And since Kurt is, for better or worse, clearly very Catholic, you'd think that he might have that. But it's not clear where he got that from, because Margalie is absolutely not Catholic, and Amanda does not appear to be. If she is Catholic, she doesn't have the hangups that Kurt does. So,
well, there was that one shot about Kurt's life that we covered that was awful, that kind of explains how he got his Catholic belief system, and I don't subscribe to it, so we won't even talk about it. But
right, so he gets it from somewhere, but like, if you are Muslim, for instance, and I'm not saying they are, but like just another kind of Romani, Muslims don't consider adopted siblings. They consider them very much foster siblings. So that, or I shouldn't say all Muslims, because I can't speak for all Muslims. As a basic rule, adoption is not a thing that happens in the class. So like we would say, oh, you're raised together, you're siblings. They would not say so. They would say your parents died and someone else's mother and father were good enough to take you in because someone needs to take care of the children. And so it's much more of a, even though you'd be under the same roof, it would be a boy next girl, girl next door kind of thing. Like you'd be raised together as close as brother and sister, but not exactly the same. And it makes that distinction very clear. And then inside the Romani culture, there's like a continuum depending on which group of Romani that you're supposed to be, whether or not they consider it a blood relation versus a real relation, even though he calls them mom. So the best example I can think of with more Western white culture would be in the movie The Godfather. In the movie The Godfather, they have an adopted child, Tom, who's the concierge to the Corleone family. But it is very clear that he is not a natural son of Don Corleone. Like Don has 3 sons that like are the sons, and then they have another son-ish thing. Or Jon Snow, similar in Game of Thrones, which obviously Game of Thrones is pretty cool with incest as well. So not necessarily the best.
Yeah.
But like in that concept, it's some of the cultures consider it less of a relationship. But it's still weird. I acknowledge the weirdness. And because I was raised in such a way that like I wouldn't want to marry any of my cousins or any of my siblings because I'm too close to even the cousins. I'm too close to them. But also I'm the kind of person, like, I met my wife after college. I'm not interested in anybody that I grew up with, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not. And I was like, like they're like, I knew you when you were 5. No, thank you. It's weird to me for any of them. And something. There's people who are still my friends. I've got friends from that long ago. But like the idea of I don't want to see you naked. I've seen you eat boogers. Like that kind of thing.
And that was like last week.
Right? Yeah. But like for some people, maybe it would, right? And I'm hesitant to judge it. But it is weird.
Yeah.
I get why it's weird. But I also think that the weirdness comes from forcing our culture onto them, and they're definitely intended to be different people. So Kurt is a circus person. He's circus folk. They are traveling people. Yeah. She adopted him because someone's got to take care of this baby, right? Like she probably isn't legally his mother in any respect, because why would they bother to do that?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably not legally anything, period, until Xavier comes around. Do you know what I mean? Like,
he's probably I doubt it. Right? Yeah, he had he's a baby that they found in the river. And then, okay, I guess I'll raise this baby. Sure. Good. He's good with the trapeze. Perfect.
Let me tell you, you know why he became Catholic? Because he floats like Moses, that baby. Float down that freaking river. Like,
then he should be Jewish.
Moses wasn't Catholic. That's true, actually. Yeah, that was really bad. I didn't realize how bad that was until I was saying it. So,
but but it's weird. I mean, I do acknowledge the weirdness of the relationship. I think it's weirder. You talked about like it's probably less weird for if it were like North Star and Aurora, right? The ones that weird me out are, and it's like I said, I don't love the idea of shipping, or I don't hate the idea of shipping either. Like shipping to me is like, here's what I like in this story. Everybody's polyamorous, so it works for this story. That's fine. Because one of my favorite,
I have a whole altar to my ship literally behind me. So
I have no problem with it, because one of my favorite pairings in comics is Kitty and Ilyana. They absolutely love each other. I can I assume that they've been together. I assume that there's been lots of sex when they were experimenting when they were 15. And that said, I also know that that's super creepy, because from Ilyana's perspective, she should remember Kitty not quite as a mother figure, but as a very much my much older brother's girlfriend. Because remember, they meet when Ilyana is 7, and Kitty is in a very much a babysitter. It creeps me out. A lot of people also, this happens, people who are fans of my show, there's a lot of people who consider Rachel and Kitty to be a couple. That creeps me out, because from Rachel's perspective, Kitty was absolutely her mother figure. Kate Pride was absolutely her mother figure. And it's not her mom, but it's the woman who raised her after her parents are gone. And she sees her that way, and she's got a motherly love for her. So even though it's a different time displaced character, the fact, like, I cannot date anybody who looks like my mom. That's weird.
I agree with that. I mean, and then you've got Rachel and Kurt, going right back to our guys who like to fuck siblings. There you go. I mean,
listen, the X-Men are just as flawed as we are. Like that's, I think that's kind of the thing here. Like, honestly, the X-Men in general, like, if you really think hard, you could probably draw a map, kind of like they did on the L Word, of like everybody sleeping with them and how they're all somehow connected. You could probably spend forever doing that with the X-Men and get it complete. That's ridiculous.
You know who the Shane of the X-Men is going to turn out to be, and everyone's going to be shocked? Dupe,
my man. He teaches sex ed. He fucked Madonna. He's an icon.
Listen, Dupe, it is canon that he can get it. So
it is 100%. Google it right now. If y'all don't believe me, I will come school you myself.
I don't remember the Madonna one, but that's awesome.
Oh my god, Google it. It's so good.
I want to talk about just going back to what you were saying about like Kurt's being like the Catholic side of him, that there should be like an uncomfortableness maybe with the concept of dating his sister. Now, I have a fan theory that I believe I may have shared. We might have talked about this during the Amanda Sefton episode with Connor. But I have a theory that the reason she is called Amanda and not Jermaine is because, like, if you notice, he has not called her Jermaine since like he found out Amanda and Jermaine were the same person. Ever since then, it's Amanda. He only calls her Jermaine when he goes back, like he like flashes back to when they were kids. So I have a theory that this is him in his mind justifying that they are two totally different people. Like, he's like, I'm not fucking my sister. My sister is Jermaine. This is Amanda. And it's just like, it's like, okay. It's like that, that Homer Simpson walking into the bar with a mustache. Like, okay, it's a totally different person. Okay, if that's what you need to do to sleep at night, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it just is interesting because, like Mav, it was super cool hearing you share all that stuff that you've heard and learned about through research, about perspectives on incest and different cultures and stuff. And then, so it's interesting to hear about how it's funny because the original issue, and I could be wrong, so Mav, correct me if I'm wrong, but the original issue behind incest was the biological part, right?
Yes.
Like
that's where
you do it messes up your genes over time. Yeah, it messes up your genes. So that's where humans, we learned, like, don't do that because we're gonna die out, right? And then there was a social issue built in with it, right? And so like Lisa, the social issue is huge for you. Like that's what interested me. You even said earlier, like, I'm not worried that much about the blood in this situation. I'm more worried about the fact that they psychologically feel this way. And so me, that's so interesting because I, like, at least in the past, I always thought like, oh, the blood's the worst part. Like the social stuff is still really not okay, right? But like, whatever. The blood is the huge no-no. And so hearing you say that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's a different perspective. It's not right or wrong or anything. It's just so interesting. So yeah, it's like that's a whole other conversation. It's like what qualifies as it, right? Because it's almost like you're making a whole new definition for incest then, because you're like, I don't really care about the blood, which is fine. I mean, I guess like it's a perspective. So I don't know. It's very fascinating.
No, I was like, you can. I think it's both. You like. I think there's. It's like a scale almost, and you can go as far to one side or the other. But all in all, incest is wrong. We can all agree that.
Oh yeah. I think it's absolutely the psychological issue that probably bothers us mostly, and that's where it gets weird because different people see it differently, and we sort of expect everybody to see it the same. But like, it's the psychological component has to matter, otherwise no one would care in any queer relationship, right? Like, there's no issue of pregnancy if you're brothers or if you're sisters. It's only and we don't have a lot of stories. Like, if you have a story where two sisters are fucking, people are going to be like, no, this is not okay. Or two brothers, no, this is not okay. You need the issue becomes, you were raised together. And if you look at the very, very currently popular step sibling porn, the step sibling porn fantasy is, oh, my dad married your mom, and we're both 18 and you're hot and I can't keep my hands off you, right? Like, it's not like we met each other as adults. It's not our fault that our parents got married. That's the fantasy, but it still feels naughty, right? That's what's going on. So I think there's some of that with the attraction to the Amanda relationship. But like, part of it is you wouldn't do it if they were twins, right? Like, you wouldn't have North Star and Aurora, even though they didn't know each other as children.
Listen, don't say never, because it did happen in Ultimate with Pietro and Wanda.
I could say Pietro and Wanda. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'm saying you. Particularly in a code-approved comic, that's a harder relationship. Even with Pietro and Wanda, it was very much portrayed as they're doing this and it's wrong. Game of Thrones, they're doing this and it's wrong.
And Wolverine's in the bushes watching,
and he's probably their father in that universe. It's heavily in the Ultimate Universe. It's heavily implied that Wolverine's their father, not Magneto. But like.
Gross.
Go Game of Thrones and compare. You've got Jamie and Cersei together, and that's wrong. It's wrong because they're twins. They were raised together. And then you've got Jon and Daenerys. They're aunt and nephew, and or actually they're uncle and niece. I forget which way it goes, but they're directly related as well. Yeah. And a nephew, and they theoretically should also not be okay, but they didn't know each other till they were 20, so whatever. Like,
I mean, I definitely did a little like thing when the Daenerys and Jon Snow thing happened. I was like, we're dealing
that's
with that.
And people, and by the time it happens, the fans are cheering for it, right? Like, oh, when are they going to do it? When are they going to do it? And I'm like, never. But I mean, I guess I know it's going to happen, but I don't. I did want to bring up just the other thing is because I mentioned this at the top. This has been going on for a while. If you read Silver Age comics, there are many, many, many instances where it points out that Clark and Kara, Superman and Supergirl, want to fuck so badly.
You're about to make me so mad, Mav. I can't do this because I'm a huge Supergirl fan. No, there's so many bad things from like Silver Age Supergirl. Don't read it. Listen, anybody that likes Supergirl, I don't care how much you like her. I don't care how you learned about her. Doesn't matter. Please do not read those comics. Please. Don't do it.
Can I just say one thing about Silver Age comics and relationships? Like, we're talking about like the 30s and 40s, right? Where like
50s and 60s up through 75. 55 till 75.
Okay. 75 was getting a little late. But 50s and 60s, I mean, back then everybody met their wife in high school.
Yes.
Or husband. You know what I mean? Like, everybody met their spouse in high school. Everybody was marrying the girl and boy next door. So I could see that being like every story has to be like, all the relationships have to have this kind of connection, because even Green Lantern, wasn't Hal and Carol, like, didn't they grow up together in some weird way?
Yeah. Yeah. But even in the modern version of the CW version of the Flash, I think I pointed this out on Twitter.
Yeah.
They in the CW Flash, Iris and Barry grew up in the same house together. Now, there's a little bit of an out there in that he had a crush on her before he moved into her house. His parents, his mom dies and his dad goes to jail, so the family next door takes him in, and he already had a crush on her. But still, as I said, I don't want, like, I had crushes when I was like, I know who I had a crush on when I was 7. I'm not interested in anymore.
Yeah.
It's been 40 years. I grew out of it. And but on the other hand, I know people who, did marry their childhood sweetheart. I actually do know people where that happened. So I guess for some people that works, and that's what you want to explore. I think it becomes questionable. Not even questionable. I think it becomes weird when it's something where the comic wants you to notice the problem and then wants to blow it off without dealing with the ramifications. In the Supergirl ones that I'm talking about, they're like, hey, they're cousins. This is wrong, but we did it anyway. Or did we? There's a couple of instances like that. And then the same thing with Amanda and Kurt, if he literally said, and Kurt was raised in the circus with these, and he's being taken care of by the trapeze people and the fortune teller people and the lion tamer and the reason it's a problem is because he explicitly calls Jermaine his sister. He says that on sometimes, and that makes he more often refers to her brother as his brother. And I can excuse it if I just say it's a brotherhood thing. It's they're all circus people. He probably also thought of, the lion tamer's kid as his brother, but we never see those people.
Yeah, that's, okay. So we've been rereading the 2004 Nightcrawler series, and in the most recent arc that we haven't done the episode yet, but I read the issues today. They're going into his background, and it's very interesting the way he refers to Margali, Stefan, and Jermaine. Because when him and Stefan are talking, he's calling Stefan brother, but he's calling Margali your mother, and he's calling Jermaine your sister. Not our sister, not our mother, which is weird because I feel like this was like Roberto Aguirre Sacasa's way of kind of inching away from that brother and sister relationship, even though he mentions it throughout the entire series several times that they're brother and sister. I don't know if that was his way of doing that, but it was very odd because at the same time, we have a lot of canon of him calling Margali his mother and less canon of him calling Jermaine his sister or Amanda his sister because they just don't. And there's more canon actually of other X-Men referring to Amanda as his sister than there is of him referring to Amanda as a sister, which I think is funny.
Know what? I just I've realized, so this is not siblings. This is a more distant kind of thing, but I can sort of equalize it out. I think that there's if Stefan is his childhood best friend, then there's like a blood brother style relationship, like where I think of you as a brother, so I'm calling you brother. That is a thing dudes might do. But even beyond that, I think that there's a connection that happens. So I was thinking about this. My mom, I and not even just my mom. I have my aunt Nita. My aunt Nita is not related to me in any way, shape, or form. She is the sister of my aunt by marriage. So my uncle's wife had a sister, and so I grew up calling her my aunt. She died a couple years ago. But she was my aunt, and my mom refers to Nita as her sister. And so if we're talking about Nita, my mom will say, when my sister Nita died, because my uncle is 10 years older than my mom. So when she met them, she was 13. She's known them since she was a kid, and Nita was roughly her age, the same way, right? My mom refers to Nita as her sister, and just always has. So I grew up calling her my aunt. However, my mom as an adult started dating my uncle Charles, who is Nita, and Mary is my aunt, my so he's their brother. Again, not related to my mom in any way, shape, or form, but and they were well adults. They were in their 50s, but they started dating, and it was like sort of my mom was dating her brother-in-law. So this person who had always been my uncle was now, they never got married, but he was my mom's longtime boyfriend but they were adults when they, or he was an adult when they met. He's like 5 years older than my mom. So like it was, my mom was 13. He would have been 18 when they met. And when they got together, he would have been like 50, so it's like it's not creepy, but it's weird from the relationship because my mom would never refer to Charles as her brother. She would refer to Nita and Mary as her sisters, even though they're really her sister-in-laws, but she would never refer to Charles as her brother or even her brother-in-law because he would be a boyfriend.
So here's a question. Is his birth name Charles, or did she actually start calling him Charles after they started dating like Kurt and Amanda? No, I'm kidding.
His name's Charles.
It's just, no, I know, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
I was thinking, but I was thinking about it. You said that, I'm like, no. but yeah,
he
it's
was
weird.
David up until a little while, and then he was Charles.
It's weird. But like that's a connection, and I'm sure she doesn't like. If I ask my mom, would you think of Charles? She'd go, no, absolutely not. But like, but it's just because she thinks of him as an ex-boyfriend, but she thinks of him in a lover scenario in her head as opposed to a brother scenario.
So you brought up the blood brother thing, and you're 100% on the money. Like that could be what this situation is, because it is canon that him and Stefan did the whole blood brother, like cut your hand, shake hands. Don't do that anymore, everybody, please. There's too many.
It's bad for you. This is a horrible idea.
It's so freaking bad for you. Like, and honestly, when he did the blood brother thing, I think that was written in the 80s, which like really bad time, guys.
Already,
really bad time.
Already not hygienic, not good. There are diseases.
Real bad time to be telling people to cut their hands open and shake their friends' hands. Okay, not a good idea. But that could be the case. Is that it's the blood brother thing, and he considers him his brother through that. Because of their closeness. And, from everything I read, like all the canon that exists, it actually makes it very clear that he was much closer to Stefan growing up than he was to Amanda or Jermaine. Like, and I think it really has to do with they were both boys and they did boy things. Although they also make very clear that he had a crush on Amanda/Jermaine when they were very young too. There's
X-Men Unlimited number 4. We just did it at Gosh Golly Wow. We recorded it yesterday. It will air probably before this episode. It's a horrible comic. It's awful. But yes, he has a crush on her and says, but in that particular issue, there is a lot of if you weren't my sister, nudge nudge. There's a lot of that in there.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Stop,
oh my
gross.
God. Okay, Marvel, you have to go one way or the other. Enough, okay? I've spoken. So, all right. Well, Mav, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this with us. It has been an absolute pleasure. It was a great idea. It was your idea completely, so we deserve zero credit for the entire thing.
It is a weird relation. I acknowledge the weirdness of the relationship. I think one of the things that we just have to be cognizant of, it's comics, so there's a lot of incestuous relationships. The X-Men all consider themselves family, and therefore they're all like weirdly like that. Like there's a lot of people
word chart. So we should do it. We should do it. We should do like a podcast crossover where like us and like oh gosh, oh golly, wow, and maybe Cerebral. We'll get Connor in. I'm sure Connor would love this project.
I mean, who has the time to put that together?
It might take 2 years, but it'd be amazing.
The lines are
2 years.
It'll be just in time for them in the MCU. We'll be like, you guys want to get to know the X-Men? Here's our chart. And people will be like, what the fuck is this? And we're like, hi.
Yeah, the worst part is when the kids start fucking the parents. That's where it starts.
Well, it's like Friends, the TV show Friends. Other than Ross and Monica, who were, blood siblings, every other combination happens because they're just trying things out and they don't have any other friends besides the 6 of them, apparently. So it's like whose turn is it to date Joey now is just kind of a thing that happens in that show.
Don't sneeze on Janice. Don't sneeze on Janice. She comes around here and there.
And she dates both and she ends up dating both Chandler and Ross, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that much about the spines. So yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
because it has to be incestuous, and that's just one of those things we do in closed cast fictional scenarios.
Well, I mean, it's an enormous trope in fan fiction, especially like
Mhm.
young fanfic writers. It's like everybody is just paired up with everybody. It doesn't matter what like the movie is. It could be freaking, the stupidest movie for it, and all of a sudden everybody is paired up with everybody. Everybody's dating everybody. And it's yeah. So people exist outside of social circles that we all can learn and enjoy. But yeah, it's been awesome. It's been great having you here, talking about all the things that make everybody so uncomfortable. And yeah, we didn't end up enemies by the end of it. I was like ready to, blood in the water. I was ready. I actually had a backup laptop in case I smashed this one.
There was no suplexing. I'm disappointed. I at least wanted something to break up. Like,
oh, I'll break something eventually. The night is young. Something will break eventually at this point. But Mav, why don't you tell them where they can find you?
You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. All of the places, always at Chris Maverick. You can tell I do this like literally every week on my show. You can also, you can also follow me on the Vox Popcast, which is Vox Popcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or wherever you get podcasts from, and on Oh Gosh, Oh Golly, Oh Wow, which you don't say the O's, so it's just Gosh Golly Wow on Twitter.
Gosh Golly Wow.
Gosh Golly Wow,
and that out.
Yeah, because it was when we came up with it. When we were talking about it, it's like, oh, well, this would be fun. It's this little in joke, and like everybody will love that, because I always love picking podcast names that no one can, spell or find, because that's great for branding, like Vox Popcast, VOXPOPCAST, and like people and like every time people are like, I tried to find Vox Popcast, and like why are you doing it in Spanish? I'm like, it's actually Filipino, and that's not me. Because it's a different show.
If you find a Filipino podcast, it's not Mav. So he does not know Tagalog.
I do not know Tagalog. My niece does. That's the language my niece takes in I mean, she's 16, but like that's the foreign language she takes. So so she probably understands that show.
That's pretty amazing. There you go. So we're excited to have you. Of course, we'll have you back on again because we are still friends, fun. Which is good.
Thank you.
It's always a good time. It's always great. And yeah, if you want to join us for another fantastic episode, you can find us at simplyamazingpod.com. That's all of our socials are there. Our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, or whatever else we got. I don't know. I'm 40, so I don't know that shit anymore. Like, we got that too. I don't know.
Do you?
So yeah. Yeah, we have a Twitch. We don't use it very often. We're going to do a live soon. We keep saying we're going to do a live. By the time this comes out, maybe we've already done the live. I don't know.
Lisa keeps saying this, and I'm like, girl, give me a date and time. Like,
I'm working on it. I'm leaving in like 2 days for like 2 weeks, so I'm working on it. But we'll see what happens. So come follow us on all of our socials. Lauren, tell them where they can find you, girl.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at friendlymBHDBI. And yeah, you can find everything else on there. I started writing reviews again, which is fun too. So maybe at some point I'll write a written review about a Kurt book. We'll see. I probably should not write about Legion of X because it will probably not be good. So no, probably won't do that one, but we'll see what happens.
All right, beautiful. And again, follow our socials, find us on everything, tag us, tell us you love us, tell us you hate us. We don't care. It's fine. We like you anyway. And if you're out there still wondering, like you're going back and forth, like what is incest? Do me a favor, Google Habsburg, but then enjoy the rest of your night because you're simply amazing.